space medicine. Even up until 1941, it had hardly been explored. But this was destined to change. Due to advances in aviation science, World War II fighter pilots wrestled with the problem of blackouts. The Mayo Aeromedical Unit impacted the course of the war with their innovation, the anti-gravity suit, which not only revolutionized the tolerance of pilots toward multiples of gravity, but also changed medical history and counteracts the effects of cardiovascular deconditioning on astronauts. During World War I, fighter planes were sluggish and few. The bulk of the fighting took place below, on land and at sea. But after the war, interest in aerial combat increased. Fighter planes improved, making the aircraft faster and capable of soaring to greater altitudes than ever before. With the dawn of World War II, these fast, agile planes became key to aerial combat. Yet though the designs of planes were revolutionized, the physiology of their human pilots remained unchanged. This proved to be an immense danger. With increased speed, planes were able to initiate incredibly sharp turns and deep plunging dives. Fast aerial maneuvers like those create a type of centrifugal force, a force so similar to the force of gravity that it is referred to as a G-force, or a G. As a pilot experiences 2 Gs, he feels twice his normal body weight. At 3 Gs, he feels 3 times his body weight, and so on. Since with increased Gs, a pilot feels multiples of his body weight, his blood too must become heavier. And when that happens, the heavy blood leaves the head and pools in the legs, thus depriving the brain of oxygen and leading to a blackout, also called G-lock, for gravity-induced loss of consciousness. Too many World War II fighter pilots did black out. Blackouts did not typically last long, but were often long enough to result in a fatal crash. Whichever side, either the Axis powers or the Allies, found a way to surpass G-forces, would have an undeniable advantage in aerial combat. Mayo Clinic, with its aeromedical unit, was one of the first organizations to study in depth the effects of acceleration on the human body. This research began in 1942, shortly after the beginning of World War II. Crucial to the Mayo team's research was a device known as the centrifuge. Made of tubular steel bars, the centrifuge had a cockpit for carrying a human rider and was powered by the engine of a Chrysler automobile. As the centrifuge whirled, it created acute G-forces. The test subjects were none other than the members of the Mayo Aeromedical Unit. On test rides, in which they were subjected to up to 9 Gs, team members' breathing, pulse, blood pressure, and more were recorded by instruments in the centrifuge's cockpit. Soon, the Mayo team had taken hundreds of rides on the centrifuge and generated invaluable data for their cause. Now their problem was to use that data to formulate a solution to the problem of G-induced blackouts. The Mayo team devised an exercise that they called the M1 maneuver. It was nicknamed the grunt.
And what it is a straining maneuver which is designed primarily to increase arterial blood pressure. And it consists of voluntary contractions of the legs and both the calves and the thighs and the arms, and increasing the pressure in your abdomen. When someone knows how to do that, they can increase their blood pressure up to over 200 millimeters of mercury if they work at it hard enough.
But the M1 maneuver was only part of the solution. The aeromedical unit knew that now they needed to create a device that would not require the attention of the pilot. Dr. Earl H. Wood, a member of the Mayo team, and a weaver named David Clark were the ones to come up with the answer. They created a pressurized suit that applied force to the arteries of a pilot's arms and legs. This would force the heart to work harder and push the blood back up to the head.
And the first G-suit were actually quite cumbersome but extremely effective. All right, but not real comfortable. They had air bladders that surrounded the legs, all right, the lower legs, the upper legs, and also went into the abdominal area, all right. When they inflated, it was quite uncomfortable.
The anti-gravity suit, or G-suit as it was called, was quite effective, but most pilots found it too uncomfortable to wear. So, Dr. Wood and David Clark went back to work. This time, they invented another G-suit, which could be put under a pilot's clothes, unlike its predecessor. It had 5 air bladders and was designed to automatically inflate by a special valve when subjected to high G-forces. Dr. Wood's and David Clark's G-suit did seem to work on the centrifuge, but many World War II pilots were skeptical. Would it work in a fighter plane? They would need proof from the real world before they entrusted their lives to this strange new suit during combat. So, the Mayo team inquired after a pilot to try their new invention on an actual flight. The man who volunteered was Ken Bailey. He guided his plane through spectacular displays of aeronautics. He never blacked out and returned safely to ground. The first test flight of the G-suit was a complete success. Soon afterward, the United States Army, Navy, and Air Force accepted the suit. The G-suit was mass-produced and distributed to pilots. The G-suit had a major impact on aspects of aviation, medicine, and space travel. Many people speculate that the G-suit was the cause of the Allies' victory against the Axis powers in World War II. This theory may be partially true. Germany and its allies did not have anything nearly as effective as the G-suit. In fact, Germany's top designer of fighter planes remarked, after he saw a G-suit on a crashed American pilot, "We had nothing to match it, and I knew if American aviation science was so far ahead of us to make such a suit, Germany had lost the war already." With the G-suit's aid, Allies pilots were able to execute sharper turns and steeper dives than the Axis pilots, gaining the Allies an incredible tactical advantage. Still today, pilots wear a slightly varied version of Mayo's original G-suit. Modern pilots, like their World War II counterparts, continue to use the M1 maneuver to remain safe. G-suits are also useful in the area of medicine. By exerting external counterpressure on the body, G-suits are used to combat hypovolemic shock, a condition in which the body loses at least 1/5 of its blood concentration, and many organs may cease to function properly due to inadequate blood flow. Because of Mayo Clinic's research on the effects of acceleration on pilots, the centrifuge was born. Data and later tests from the centrifuge led to many medical advances, such as the oximeter, a device which discloses how much oxygen is contained in the blood, angiography, a procedure in which doctors measure the blood pressure and blood flow to the chambers of the heart to see if arteries are blocked, cardiac catheterization, a technique in which doctors test blood flow to the head and examine how well the heart is pumping, and much more. The G-suit has had an impact even in the realm of space travel. Mayo's G-suit was adapted to help astronauts cope with the single-G environment upon their return to Earth. In the weightless environment of space, a lack of hydrostatic pressure is evident. Because of this apparent lack, upon their return to Earth, astronauts will feel dizzy and exhausted while standing. The G-suit prevents these astronauts from fainting. Like the G-suit, Mayo Clinic's centrifuge also had an impact in space exploration and was used again in 1958 to conduct tests on acceleration for NASA. It was also used to test prototype astronaut couches for the Mercury project. Then, it was dismantled to make room for a machine called the DSR, which showed organs performing their functions in 3D. Mayo Clinic's G-suit impacted the response of World War II fighter pilots to G-forces. The innovative G-suit also changed medical history and helps prevent astronauts from falling victim to cardiovascular deconditioning. The G-suit was an incredibly advantageous invention, which still impacts our lives today.